Hi there, welcome. It is good to have you with me today. I would love it if you would take just a moment, please, to introduce yourself. Maybe drop a comment in the chat that tells me where you're from. And I'd also love to know if you have any iridology background already. That'll just help me to be able to tailor this little mini class on the fly. If everyone here's got experience, I can maybe go a bit deeper. If we've got a lot of new people, then I need to keep it pretty high level. So just give you a minute here to pop a comment in the chat box. Let me know where you're from, and do you have a background in iridology already? Have you studied it formally anywhere? So if you've been watching YouTube videos and reading books, we're not going to count that as education because it's not cohesive. Have you taken a class anywhere? You will find the more you play with me in my chat box, the more you post comments and engage with me there, the more you will get from me, right? If I feel like everybody's asleep, I'm not going to give you much because it's not really worth it, right? Okay. So we've got, I hope I say this name correctly, Sijith from India has basic iridology. Cheryl, hello. Blanca, naturopath, took a short course, so you've got a bit of an idea of what it is. Excellent, excellent. Okay, we're always a small group here. Iridology is a very niche thing. You've probably noticed that. First off, you've got to be interested in health, and then you've got to be interested in holistic health, and then you've got to be interested in learning how to assess holistically. And so iridology is a very, very tiny niche. I'm glad you're with me today. Now, there's a lot of different philosophies when it comes to iridology. We're going to focus on constitutional iridology today. And we've got Cheryl also with us, fantastic massage therapist, introduced to iridology, but no education in it yet. Welcome, Cheryl. It is good to have you with me. All righty, let's move forward. I want to start with doing a little bit of an iris assessment here so that you can see what this is capable of. Then we're going to touch on the history, why iridology works, the development of it, and a few more case histories so that you kind of go full circle with the foundational information here. Again, if you've got questions, pop them into the chat box. If you've got comments, pop them in there. If the questions are appropriate for where we're at, I will answer them. If they're appropriate for today's topic, but not for right where we're at, I'll answer them at the end, and we will work from there. This is a client of mine. She's been a client of mine for about 25 years. I started working with her before she and her husband had their first child. They came to me to prepare to prepare for pregnancy, and we did a lot of work back then. Got them on the right track. This couple had 2 children. The children are now, I want to say 18 and 22, 23, something like that. And the mom, whose eyes these are, started coming back to me. Clients do that. They come in for a while and they get what they need. They learn a lot. They're in a good place. They fade off for a while. Don't see them. Then, 5 or 6 years later, they'll come back for a few more sessions because they're getting older. Their body's changing. Things aren't quite what they used to be. We get them back on track, 3 or 4 appointments, send them off. And so she's been in and out and in and out. On her most recent return to me, she came in wanting to lose weight. Now, I don't do weight loss programs. I think weight loss programs where you're doing calorie restriction or things like that are not helpful. I do wellness programs. And in the focus of a wellness program, I want to understand this person's body chemistry. I want to understand their diet, their lifestyle. And then from there, I want to create an eating program for wellness. I want to create a lifestyle program for wellness, because as we create these things focusing on wellness, we bring the body back into balance, and the client can maintain that for a much longer time than they can a crash diet. And so as I was working with this client and she's saying she wants to lose weight, and truly she could probably comfortably lose 40 to 50 pounds, we started asking questions. Now, in the years that she had not been coming to me, so between those back and forths, her life had changed dramatically. She'd gotten divorced. She had quit a very high paying job to follow a career path that is following her heart, which doesn't pay nearly as well. She has both of her boys living at home, going to school in post-secondary, and she is the sole support for them. She, what else does she have going on? Oh, her work. Because she is self-employed and she works hours that are convenient for her clients, it means that her own self-care is very substandard now. She's not eating well. She's not eating on any kind of a schedule. She's mostly living on coffee, so it's not great. She did not bring labs into me. I often encourage my clients to bring labs in because they help me understand even more about what the eyes are saying and why the labs are, the eyes help me understand why the labs are out of balance. So as I'm looking at her eyes, she is nearly 50, and I'm looking at her eyes and noticing things that I didn't notice before. You know, it's amazing, right? We learn, right? We continue to learn. Iridology is a developing science. Over the last 25 years since I've done her eye photos, the first time to these photos most recently, I have learned much. And that's a beautiful thing, right? We never want a practitioner who stops learning. And so I've learned much. As I'm looking at her eyes, I asked her, what about her cholesterol? As near as she knew, it was fine. I asked her, what about your blood sugars? And she said, why? And I said, well, because I'm seeing a lot of things here, and actually in her sclera as well, we're not going to look at sclera today, that suggests to me that you're headed for type 2 diabetes. And she stopped and she started crying. And so I handed her the tissue box. I said, tell me what's going on for you right now. Help me understand where you're at. And she said, my dad has type 2 diabetes. I have told my children I would never do that to them. And here I am walking that path. And I said, but it's not too late. Even if you had a type 2 diagnosis with what we see in your eyes, there's much we can do with your diet, with your lifestyle. There's so many things we can do. We can reverse this. You don't have to have it. And so we're talking about that. And then I looked at her and I said, tell me how you heal if you injure yourself, if you have a sprain or a break. And she said, oh, let me tell you. And I said, tell me. She said, do you remember my sister? And I said, yeah, I do. She has a younger sister, just a couple of years younger. And the younger sister's never been well, has always struggled to stay healthy, in spite of having a very healthy diet. She tries to have a healthy lifestyle, but she has a lot of physical limitations because of her illnesses and her unwellness. And so I said, how do you heal? And she said, well, my sister. And I said, yes. And she said, she got genetically tested and she has, oh, am I going to remember the name of this now? Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I said, I've never heard of that. Tell me about Ehlers-Danlos. And she said, Ehlers-Danlos is a genetic condition where you don't make your collagen properly. She said, my sister is severe. She doesn't make collagen pretty much at all. And she said, so since my sister got tested, I did, and I've got it too, but I've got a mild case, and so I don't make collagen well. And her eyes tell me that her structure doesn't repair well, but I couldn't have named it Ehlers-Danlos. I'm not a doctor. I can't give it a disease name. I could just simply say, yeah, I don't think your connective tissue holds well. I don't think it repairs well. The things that I see in her eyes tell me that either cholesterol or blood sugars are likely out of balance, and out of balance because of the liver. Things in her eyes also tell me that she likely has the MTHFR defect. Are you familiar with the MTHFR defect? If you are, give me a yes. If you aren't, give me a no. Blanca says yes. Good job, Blanca. Anybody else familiar with it or not? Cheryl says no. All right. So Cheryl, this is for you. The liver is responsible for methylating certain of the B vitamins in order for us to actually use them. And if the liver is deficient in this enzyme that does the methylating, it is known as the MTHFR defect or methyl tetrahydrofolate defect. What it means is that anyone who has this, and it's about 50% of North Americans have at least one variation of this, and some of them have both genetic variations of it. But if they've got this and they don't methylate, in women, in everybody, we see an increased risk of mental health issues. We see fertility issues, both male and female. We see just a lot of different things that can be going on. And so this client doesn't know if she's got that, but she's got markers in her eyes that recent research is revealing are a very strong indication of the MTHFR. The research is suggesting that about 90% of the people, if not more, who have this particular type of marking in their eye have the MTHFR defect. Blanca says, I have one, my husband has one, and my dad has both. There you go. So Blanca, you know MTHFR very well. Good for you for knowing that. So with this information, MTHFR can also add to blood sugar imbalances, right? And so with this information, I was able to take this client back to square one, where we started 25 years ago, and re-educate her about the starting points. Now, I never throw everything out at my client all at once because it's too much. She's living on coffee and fast food, right? She knows better, but emotionally she can't do better right now. So for me to take and say, well, everything has to be organic. I want you having 6 cups of vegetables a day and 3 servings of protein and, X ounces of water every day, and you've got to quit the coffee. That's not going to work. So we started very simply, and it was very simple. Can you reduce the coffee by half and replace it with water? It could be just hot water if that feels comforting to you, or it could be herbal tea. That would work as well. Could you start having 1 meal a day that has protein and 2 servings of vegetables in it? I don't care what the protein is. At this stage of the game, and some of you will want to throw arrows at me, I know this. At this stage of the game, I don't care if it's hot dogs. I just want you getting something that has some protein. Will get you in the habit. Get you in the habit of a fast and easy protein and a couple of servings of vegetables. And we'll build on that as we continue to work. So that was where we started. And we ran into some emotional roadblocks that we are having to really struggle through because over the years, she has learned that everyone else comes first, that she doesn't deserve, right? And so we're having to really work to break through those roadblocks to help her understand that if she doesn't deserve it, who does? So she does deserve it. And, and just nurture her through that. So Iridology was a tool, an assessment tool that I used with her to help understand that she was at risk for blood sugar, cholesterol, connective tissue issues, and the kinds of impact that the MTHFR could have with her. Simple. If she'd had labs, it would have just underscored everything. It would have given us another depth of knowledge, but she didn't bring in labs. We were able to do what we needed to do anyway. All right, so that is the beauty of Iridology. That is when you understand Iridology, that is how simple it is to use in a clinical practice. All right, now, many of you have probably seen other people doing iris assessments online who would go through an eye like this. They would talk about every color, every lacuna, every marking. They would talk about everything they see. And there's a lot in these eyes. They'd give this long shopping list of markers, and then a long shopping list of what's wrong, and then a long shopping list of what to do about it. How many of you have seen things like that? If you've seen that, give me an oh yeah in the comments box. While you're giving me that in the comments box, yes, yeah, I'm here to tell you that's the wrong way to do this. That is the absolute wrong way to do this. The right way to do Iridology is to understand what your client wants help with, and then to assess the eyes with that context. What in these eyes teaches me about my client's weight? Well, the lipemic diathesis gives me information. Things that I see in the nutritive zone give me information. Pigments give me information. Now, the connective tissue things don't really give me information. Well, a little bit, because it means that, if I suggest that she go and start doing resistance training, she's not going to get any results for it. So that does help give me information about her weight as well. I haven't addressed anything else because we want to stay laser focused. I see more than that. I understand more than that. And when I make dietary recommendations, I'm going to incorporate everything I see with what I'm going to recommend, but I'm not going to flood my client with all of it. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me makes sense in the comments. Yes, Sophia says that makes sense. Fantastic. Weak genetics, by the way, open lacunas, just thinking, makes sense. Okay, so we never talk about weak genetics. How would you feel if someone told you you had weak anything? And the lacunae are very open. That is inherited. However, what you need to remember with those is she has potential to manifest these. When we have this many in here, every one of them is not important, but she can change not how these appear in the eye, but how they manifest in her body by what she does with her nutrition. Right. So we are never going to dissect every one of these. That's the old Jensen style. That's the way I learned how to do iridology 40 plus years ago. And oh, good, Blanca. I'm so glad you would never say that. I'm so glad you have that sensitivity. There are a lot of people out there who would say that. And so it's just important. I just needed to make sure we were separating our inside voice from our outside voice kind of thing here. I'm glad you said that. So, but Jensen, and this is how I originally learned it, every one of these lacunae and every one of these pigments and every little marking was a problem to be reckoned with right now. What we now know with constitutional is that is not true. When we see this many lacunae in an eye, that is a constitutional type. And each and every one of those lacunae is not important. All right, so really a good iris analysis. I pull up my clients' eye photos in every appointment. And as they progress their health, I refer back to those photos. And as things change for them, I'm able to then look at the eyes in the new light of what is their body doing now, and how does what their eyes showed me correlate? What information does it give? I only reshoot photos about once a year, and that's mostly to see what's in the iris, but also to see if any new pigments have arisen. All right, fantastic. Like, I'm so glad you're very sensitive and very prudent with that. Like I said, when we look on social media, there are a lot of people out there who are like a bull in a china shop, and they're really, I think, it looks like they're trying to prove they know something, but they're not being sensitive, and they don't have the client sitting in front of them to have a conversation to see how things are landing for that client. And that is so important. That's a part of the holistic world, right? That we need to be empathetic and sympathetic with our client. So let me introduce myself now that we've seen a little bit about what iridology is capable of. You already know my name is Judith Cobb. I am a level 3 certified iridology instructor. Oh, these are my old badges. Oh my goodness. I need to get my new badges up because I've had new badges for a couple of years. I am one of 8 level 3 certified iridologists and certified iridology instructors, level 3 instructor through IPA. And I've been a member of IPA and a certified iridologist with them for many years. They issue new badges every 2 years when we recertify. That's an important point, that we have to upgrade in order to keep our certifications current. And so I have been in iridology and holistic health. I started in 1979. Started working professionally in it in 1980. I've designed and taught many different courses and many different books that I self-published and self-distributed. And so I'm also a master herbalist and very proudly associated with the Alberta Herbalist Association. I'm also a nutritionist with professional credentials with the Canadian Association of Holistic Nutrition Professionals and Canadian Association of Natural Nutritional Practitioners. And so with all of this all works so well with iridology, right? I'd love to know, I know we've got some naturopaths in the group. I'd love to know in the chat box, what other modalities do you practice for your clients? Do you do herbs? Do you do nutrition? Do you do acupuncture? Do you do aromatherapy? What other types of things do you do? Because they can integrate so beautifully with iridology. While you're giving me that, we're going to answer 5 questions today. What is iridology? I think you already know that, but we're going to touch on that a little bit. Where did it come from? Why does it work? What can it teach us? And how should it be used? You've seen a sampling of how it should be used. This is great. We've got naturopathy and yoga and herbal nutrition, or herbal medicine and nutrition. Such good backgrounds for this. Iridology is the study of the iris of the eye. So with iridology, we are looking at the colored part of the eye. We're going to talk about why this works so well in just a few minutes. And again, some people mispronounce the word. It is not iridology, it is iridology. It is an iris, so it's iridology. Constitutional iridology recognizes that certain traits always suggest a short list of specific health predispositions. Now, notice I said health predispositions. Nothing we see in the eye is a guarantee. What we're looking at is a genetic blueprint. Considering that it is a genetic blueprint, many times we inherit a range of possibility for that organ. And so maybe the person is doing a lot of things really right and they're maxing out their potential. Maybe they're doing things a lot wrong and they're minimizing their potential. And so as we look at the eyes, we always need the context of what does our client want help with? What are their health goals? When we're looking at an iris, we are looking at genetic information that has been passed down for about 4 generations. So parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents. We do not change the irides by cleansing or fasting or taking special supplements. When you see before and after pictures, you need to be very critical about the technical aspects of the picture. Were they taken with the same camera? Were they taken with the same lighting? Absolutely critical. There are more variables than that. For example, when you change your shutter speed or your f-stop on your camera, it changes what the image looks like. And so we never do before and after to go, oh, you've done a cleanse, look at how blue your eyes are, because that can be totally changed by just the lighting. All right. Iridology is genetic, and it provides us with a framework that helps us understand our clients' physical health and emotional and personal tendencies as well. This is powerful stuff. Clients love it when we're looking at their eyes, and they've given us what they would like help with, but we look at their eyes and now we are asking them specific questions. We compare what they want help with, so their symptoms, with what we see in the eyes. It guides us to specific questions that we can ask our client. So we are no longer asking that, 20 pages of questions or playing just a general 20 questions kind of thing. We are tailor making the questions we ask to our client and our client's needs and goals based on what the eyes are teaching us. Clients love that. They love knowing that we are laser focused on them and we're not just following this is what I always do in every appointment. Every client gets these questions kind of thing. Modern iridologists also look at the sclera. Where the iris is genetic, the sclera is very dynamic. And so you know this, right? If you've ever had a really hard cry and your eyes went all bloodshot and you went into the washroom to splash some cool water on your face and you looked in the mirror and you went, oh my goodness, I can't go back out there looking like this. You need to do a little more cool water, pat your face dry, and you sit for 5 minutes and your sclerae clear up. The sclerae are very, very reactive. And depending on where they are and what the blood vessels look like, gives us indications as to things that may be preclinical in the body right now. Also gives us indications when we combine it with their symptoms and often with their irides of what is actually going on, where the hot spot is, and might give us ideas of what we need to do about it. So how did iridology start? This is interesting. We know that there are records about looking at the eyes to assess health that go back into Egypt, India, China, and Greece. Now, we also know that good science evolves, right? Do you agree with that, that good science evolves? And while you're doing that, Cheryl is asking, I have opportunity to become a detoxification therapist. The eyes will not show any removal of toxins or have any changes from detox or cleanse. The irides will not, the sclera should. Often in someone who is very toxic, you will see discolorations in the sclera, you'll see murkiness, you'll see lots of active blood vessels, and as they cleanse and detox, that will go away. There are people out there who are showing before and after photos of people who've done detoxes. Please be very critical in how you look at their before and after pictures to make sure they were taken with the same camera, under the same circumstances, with the same lighting and the same settings on the camera, to make sure that they're not using photos that are being advantageously altered. That sounds awful, doesn't it? There have been cases where that has been exposed and where authors of iridology books have admitted to doing it to meet print deadlines. So it is a thing that exists. All right, so back to our topic. Do you agree with me that all good science should evolve? That science is the art of asking questions, and as we get answers, new questions should come up, that there should be an evolution? If you agree with me, give me evolve in the comments. Evolve. You know, some people used to believe the earth was flat. Some people still do. I believe we have information that proves that the earth is round. Yeah, thank you. We're seeing that some of you are agreeing that good science should evolve. Because science evolves, it means that it needs to be updated as new research comes out, and good scientists follow the research, right? And I hate using that term because it got so misused and so abused in the recent years. But good scientists look at the research and evaluate it and decide to hop on board or find ways to disprove it, right? And so we've seen a lot of this. The kind of things that I believe it was Cheryl was talking about, doing detox to cleanse the eyes, that's a throwback to Jensen days. That has been disproved. And so, and that's from modern research, right? So we want to keep this going. The very first myth that iridology started with was the Ignaz van Petzschle owl story, where we have an 11-year-old boy in Hungary who somehow got his hands on an owl that was injured. And he reported seeing in the owl's eye a black line in the iris. And as he took this bird home and he nursed it back to health, and that black line disappeared. Well, we've got two challenges with this. Number one, an animal's eye structure, their iris is very different from human. And number two, this has never been replicated. You would think that with all of the bird sanctuaries, all the veterinarians who specialize in dealing with wild birds that have been injured, that one of them would have seen this. But in 200 years, since 1826, no one has ever seen it. So we have to just put that story aside. We are grateful that Ignaz thinks he saw what he saw, because that spurred him on to become a medical doctor and to begin drawing by hand pictures of his patients' eyes and writing out their stories and starting to correlate stories to eyes to come up with an iris map, which very interestingly, many researchers back then did. We've got Pastor Nils Lillquist, who many pastors back then were also medical doctors. He was able to correctly identify and correlate that fiber density has a lot to do with the overall resiliency of the body. So when we see fibers that are fairly evenly placed and densely packed, This is someone who can ward off illness, whose body will not break down as easily. If they abuse it, it will break down, but not as easily. They recover more quickly after an illness or an injury. Someone who's got a much more open fiber structure doesn't ward off illness as well. They have to work harder to stay well. They also don't recover as quickly or easily. And so that was some of the research that Nils Liljeqvist came up with. Emanuel Felke from Germany created a map of the iris. So just like most of these researchers, they didn't have the internet to share notes and they didn't know each other. But as we've gathered the information and found the historical information, the maps they came up with were remarkably similar, like virtually identical. And then we have Rudolf Schnabel, who was the first one to start thinking about pigment and pupil shape and size. He was one of the first people to use a microscope to examine the iris of the eye. He said this, and I like this, I really like this. It was no easy task, and those who believe or would like to believe that handling iridoscopy or iridology can be learned within a few weeks or even days are mistaken and do a disservice to a good cause. This is exactly why I don't teach weekend crash courses. Exactly, because I agree with Rudolf. Even before I saw his quote, I believe exactly like he does, that it takes time to learn iridology well. It takes practice. It takes mentoring. It takes someone giving you feedback in order for you to learn this really well. Joseph Unger was a student of Schnabel's. Now, he knew that students were reading books that were being printed, but that these books had not been peer reviewed. And students were saying, you know, if it's in print, it must be true. And Unger did not believe that. And so as he was researching, he insisted, as he found new things, that he put it past all of his peers to have them evaluate it, to see if it made sense, to see if it worked for them. And only after he had had peer reviews done was he willing to publish his work. I love that integrity. Joseph Deck, who has become the father of constitutional iridology in North America. He was also an iridology researcher, and he pioneered iridology photography. So he was a little before his time there. We also have Theodor Kriega, who was a student of Unger, Deck, and Schnabel. He felt that iridology was an amazing assessment tool and that it complemented other assessment tools like urine analysis, hand analysis, fingernail analysis, tongue analysis, and feces analysis. He always felt that it should never be a standalone assessment tool, that there should always be other things brought in to corroborate what you're finding. He specifically said, I hope that a later generation will succeed in establishing a single uniform system. We're still working on that. In spite of zealous efforts, these have so far not succeeded. Modernly, we have Bernard Jensen, who kept iridology alive in North America during the Cold War. Without him, I don't know if we'd be where we are. Now, much of what he practiced has been disproved by ongoing research. That doesn't mean we don't love him. It doesn't mean he did a lot of good for a lot of people, right? We do honor and revere him. Then we've got Harry Wolff, and this is Bill Cardona. Harry is an American-born German. He got his hands on a Joseph Deck book that was written in German. He studied it and was like, holy doodle, this stuff is good. So he started teaching it. He connected with Bill, who at the time was a registered pharmacist. They started teaching it. They eventually created what has now become IPA, and Bill has become a naturopath. My constitutional instructor was Bill Cardona. I'm still in touch with him, and in the past few years, I've been able to connect with Harry as well. And just, I absolutely love that these three men all knew each other very well, and they were very much in support. Harry and Bill honored Dr. Jensen. They just loved him tremendously. Dr. Jensen admonished Harry and Bill to keep going, keep working with developing iridology. So love that. So why does iridology work? It works because the eyes are the largest neural receptors of the body. They are extensions of the brain. They are neural tissue. And it works because each iris has about 28,000 nerve endings in it. We don't yet know what they all do. Embryologically, the eyeball develops at the same time that the brain and the nervous system does. And, the brain knows everything that's going on in the body. If something's not right, the brain knows it. If there is a genetic glitch in the body of some kind, there will be usually something in the iris. Now, I will give you a very big anomaly on this one. I've got a granddaughter who is severely developmentally delayed and severely autistic. She has the most beautiful eyes you'll ever see, and there is nothing in there that says there should be a problem, right? So there we go. And so we don't see everything, but we see a lot. And so we want to understand what those markings mean. Now, when we see things in the eyes, again, it's not a guarantee that there's a problem. It tells us that there is a potential. There is a potential. And so then understanding the diet, the lifestyle, how the person processes information, all of those things will impact how things manifest in the body. So how are you doing so far? Any questions so far? In a minute, we're going to do 2 more analyses. Now, Blanco says, Bernard Jensen is one of my heroes. He was amazing. I never had the privilege of meeting him. I know people who did, and I've heard nothing but lovely things about him. I think he was probably very wise and very gentle, and just an amazing man. I would have loved to have met him. So just putting a little bug in your ear, the next go round of dynamic iridology is starting on August 24th. That course is open for registration now. And registration is only by talking to me. And so I will give you how to reach out to me in a few minutes. But I'm very particular about who comes into the class, because you have to have a college level anatomy and physiology course under your belt. It can't be high school. It can't be high school upgrading. It has to be a college level anatomy and physiology, because this is the only live online fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, and naturopaths, and registered nurses, and EMTs, and physical therapists who want to streamline their clinical care without sacrificing client care. These are people who often will see a client, and then they will go off and spend 2 or 3 or 4 hours creating a protocol for the client, and then either email that to the client or take it to the client at a later date. Sad thing is, they're often not getting paid for the hours of program creation. When you do iridology the way I teach it, you get your programs created while you are with your client. And it encourages your client to come back for 3 or 4 or 5 more appointments to get all the progress they're going to get on this go round. That is simply because when I teach iridology, I teach you how to build your protocols in bite-sized steps, in manageable steps. Blanca, fantastic. And Blanca's saying she would like information. I will reach out to you, and you'll get more information as we're going through today as well. So if you want to learn more than just iris markers, if you want to understand how the markers actually work together and integrate that with any modalities you already know for creating protocols, then we really want to talk, because this is the way to do it. We need to remember with iridology, we never diagnose disease. And regardless of what you've seen on social media, we never diagnose disease. We always talk about predispositions. Iridology will help you stay in your scope of practice. So if you have a scope of practice that is quite narrow, and maybe you have a professional organization that you are part of, iridology can help you stay within your scope of practice. All right, let's do another assessment. So as we look at this set of eyes, This person, who was this? I just need to see this client's name to remember her story. Okay. So this client, we would describe her eyes as being lymphatic, polyglandular, anxiety tetanic. We see that she is also hydrogenoid, and these words may not make sense to you just yet. These are all the things that I take in when I'm doing an assessment. These are not the things I tell the client. She has a tight collarette. This suggests that she is predisposed to constipation and poor energy production, but I would never tell a client that they feel that way. I would ask them, how many bowel movements do you have a day? Do you know what your bowel transit time is? Right, then I might have them do the bowel transit test and report to me to let me know what they've got there. And I always ask because maybe this client already knows that they tend towards constipation. So they are being very conscientious about drinking enough water, getting enough vegetables in their diet, going for a walk every day. They're doing everything, and they're supporting their bowel in beautiful ways. Does no good for me to then harp on that, right? She's what we call polyglandular, which means she is prone to or predisposed to hormonal imbalances. So specifically, we would want to ask about thyroid, pancreas, adrenals, reproduction. And specifically with her, I had her track her basal body temperature, which came back low, which suggests possibly hypothyroid, right? She has a very clean diet, organic, and she was struggling to get pregnant when we took these photos. She'd had a miscarriage about a year prior to this and a chemical pregnancy just a few months before we did these. When we see that she's polyglandular, it tells us that she is at risk for blood sugar imbalances and endocrine hormone imbalances. The fact that the center part of her eye is a different color, and the color it is tells us again that she is more prone to blood sugar imbalances, although her diet is doing a great job of regulating that, and her lifestyle is too. She's prone to lymphatic stagnation, but she has an active diet or an active life and a clean diet. So all I do when I see something like that, and I think it's important, if it's important for the client, I will comment, often when we see this particular marking, it suggests that your lymphatic system wants to be sluggish. I'm going to congratulate you because you are very active. You drink good fluid and you've got a clean diet. You're already doing things to keep your lymphatic system happy. So I don't need to harp on that. Keep up the good work, right? And just give them a big pat on the back. Her nutritazone tells us with comb teeth and a slightly dull color that she may not digest proteins very well. So I may need to give her some help digesting her proteins. Because I understand anatomy and physiology, because I understand the hormones that need to be in place and the cholesterol levels that need to be in place for her to conceive, I need to do more than just look at ovaries and uterus, right? And that's why I'm looking at digestion so that I can understand, is she able to break things down? I want to know, what does she eat? And is she able to break them down? I'm going to ask all kinds of digestive questions to make sure she is breaking her food down well enough. If she's not, then I need to give her some digestive support. We see a little bit of orange in zone 3, which again teaches us about pancreas and about blood sugar. Again, she's doing a good job, it seems, of regulating that. Although I find that most people who are, she's not quite vegan, but almost, they often don't get enough fat. So that's often the direction I'm having to push them in. When we look at her ovary reaction fields, what we see is that she has an unusual fiber running through each of them. So we're looking down here and we're looking over here. And so that says that genetically there might be a glitch with the ovaries. So when we always want to tie what we're talking about with the client, so what we're seeing in the eyes, with what the client needs, with what the client's goals are. And we always want to commend them for things they are doing well and very gently encourage them to do other things better and to explain why something is important. Why is it important this person would give up coffee? She's not a coffee drinker, but if she was, why would that be important? Because coffee does these things in the body and it's fighting against what we are trying to accomplish here, right? So we always want to give them reasons. So with this client on her first appointment, we put her on a really good prenatal vitamin that had methylated Bs because she also is in need of methylation. I suspect she has MTHFR. We added a little bit of the L5-MTHF, which is the methylated folate. We also added some herbs to feed her nervous system because she has the anxiety to tannic traits. And we also added some N-acetylcysteine. I love N-acetylcysteine for helping with the liver phase 1, phase 2 detox. There's been a lot of clinical research done on N-acetylcysteine and how it aids with fertility, particularly with the liver and making cholesterol that's needed to make the hormones and detoxifying things after they're done. So N-acetylcysteine is a good thing here. We suggested that she should increase her healthy protein, which she was very willing to do. She likes to be adventuresome with her food, so we suggested wild fish, wild game, maybe bison, if she can get that, would be good. And of course, we pushed her to have more healthy fats, whether that's avocado, whether it's more fish, whether it's eggs with the yolk. Really wanted to encourage her to get more healthy dietary fats. So did you see in that how iridology helped us to understand why she was not getting pregnant and helped us to understand what we could do that would have an impact? If you can see that, give me an IC in the comments box. And that is literally how long an IRIS assessment should take. Right? These long drawn out lists with everything, not necessary, not helpful. The more we focus on what we see in the eyes that isn't right, every little marking, the more hope we take away from our clients. That's how I used to do it when I was a Jensenian. We would nitpick every little mark. And, I would make this long list of what's wrong, what you need to do about it, what we could expect to see if they did everything perfectly. And I began to feel like I had some acquaintances who own a funeral home. I began to feel like I should just keep their business cards in my desk because my clients were leaving with no hope. I love constitutional. It allows me to give hope to my clients, to give them structure and direction and hope. And that is brilliant. This is a woman who's in her mid-50s, and she came to me because apparently, and I apologized for not remembering her. She said 25 years ago, she'd come to see me and she described my office, so I know she was seeing me. And she said, you helped me with a sinus problem and you did it in 2 appointments. So I thought, maybe you could help me with hot flashes. So cool, that's really cool. So she came in with hot flashes. Her eye color says that liver will be an undercurrent for her. It's going to influence everything in her body. Now, she has her diet figured out really well. She's really quite healthy with that. Lots of organic, lots of plant matter, a little bit of animal protein. She does drink 1 cup of Turkish coffee a day. And she really wants to get those hot flashes under control. So when I'm looking at her eyes, there are 2 things that I see. Number 1 is that genetically, her nervous system wants to run the show. Now, she's a social worker. She understands stress. She understands what stress does physiologically in the body. And so she's worked really hard to keep a balanced lifestyle. If she knows she's got a client who is challenging coming in, or that she's working with a challenging person today, she books that day very lightly so that she's got time to recharge herself. If she knows that her clients are, they're in a better place, then it's going to be an easier day. She'll book a few more. She does take time to exercise. She takes downtime to just sit and read and just relax. So she's got a lot of this under control. But the nervous system, which in this case is going to include the adrenal glands, because when they put out adrenaline as a sympathetic response, it affects the nervous system. So I needed to ask her about all those things. And I asked her, what happens when you get stressed? And she said the hot flashes get worse. That comes as no surprise. It makes perfect sense when you understand the hormone links here. The other thing was liver. So I asked her if she had any problems digesting fats. She said, no, she was good there. Does she have anger issues or does she hold any grudges? And she says she used to when she was young. She realized what she was doing, so she has taught herself skills to let go of those kinds of emotions. So again, things were really good. She had a lot of good things in place. The one thing that I knew was tripping her up was that 1 cup of Turkish coffee. Now, I know nothing about coffee. I don't drink coffee, never have, never will. And so I have no idea what Turkish coffee is. But I asked, are you willing to do an experiment and give up the Turkish coffee for 10 days just to see if that is a part of the problem? And she agreed to. She did that. When she came back for her next appointment, I asked her, how did it go? And she said, well, yeah, I did it. And the hot flashes were much better. And I said, so what direction will you go from here? And she said, well, to be honest, I don't have any other vices. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't take street drugs. I've got a clean diet. The Turkish coffee is the only pleasure I have in my foods. But her other foods sounded absolutely divine. And she said, so I'm not going to give it up. I will find another way. She had already tried hormone replacement therapy, had done that for a couple of years with no luck. Unfortunately, I don't have anything strong enough in the herbal world to override the effects of coffee. So she chose to keep the hot flashes, which made me very sad because the caffeine stresses the adrenals. It depletes the B vitamins, and the B vitamins are really helpful for the liver and helping it to function and helping to keep the adrenals balanced. So the caffeine was really not a good move. Adding B vitamins to her would not be enough to counteract the effects of that 1 cup of coffee. There is no supplement that I've ever found that is strong enough to hide the effects of caffeine. Still, we did the assessment, and my job, our jobs, is not to browbeat our clients into behaving the way we want them to. Do you agree? If you agree with that is not our job, give me an I agree in the comments box. Our job is to educate our clients and give them opportunities to learn for themselves what works and guide them through a process that allows them to have control of their health, whatever they want that to look like. Now, this client, I haven't seen her since. We left on very good terms. I made sure she understood that she would be welcome back here anytime. Maybe she's finally got fed up with the hot flashes and maybe she's quit the Turkish coffee on her own. And if she did, bravo. And sometimes when they do that after the fact, they're embarrassed to come back and say, yeah, I've done it, which they don't know how I would respond. My response would be, I am so happy for you. I'm glad you are feeling better. There would never be an I told you so, because that doesn't help anybody. So as you look at this kind of thing, how do you think incorporating iridology like this would benefit you in your practice with your clients? Would it allow you to see more clients in less time, but actually maybe even increase the quality of care you're giving? Would it mean you could spend less time creating programs for your clients? Sophie's saying yes, absolutely. Fantastic. Would it mean that you might have enough of an income because you can see more clients in less time that you could actually take some time off to make sure you're doing self-care? So critical. I saw so many holistic professionals burn out during the last few years. Cheryl says, I think it would give a better understanding of my client and allow them to understand themselves and take responsibility for their health. Yes, Cheryl, fabulous. Exactly. Exactly. That is so good. So good. So we use iridology exactly the way Cheryl has described it, to gain insight, to create rapport, to guide the questions we ask, which is going to help our clients give us information so we can educate our clients and support our clients more effectively on a more individualized level. Iridology is going to help us to create better packages, better information packages for our client. And I don't mean like write them out papers. I mean, deliver protocols, give them protocols that are better because they're more targeted. It also helps us to create that doable sequence. Appointment 1, we're starting here because this is the foundation. Appointment 2, when they've done their homework well, we are going to build in this way. We're going to add this food recommendation or this supplement. Appointment 3, we're going to add this lifestyle change. We're going to change the diet one more twist. We're going to add one more supplement so we can build it step by step so that our clients never feel overwhelmed, but they are seeing progress with every session they have with us. This is exactly why I teach health professionals. Exactly why, because I want them to have massive success with their clients with less effort. And I want those clients to actually be overjoyed because they are getting such great results. So we'll gain insight. It'll guide our questions. It'll help us create rapport because we're asking questions that are specific to them. It'll inform our recommendations and it will help us create those doable sequences. So if this sounds interesting to you, and if you're thinking, I'd like more information, I want to see if I'm a good candidate for this class, well, then I'm just making sure I put the right link here. I did not. So that is not the link I want you using. Sorry about that. I should have updated that. I meant to update that. I wanted that to be, I'm sorry. I have a better one because this one's only going to give you 15 minutes. And I actually like to have a few more minutes than that with you to get to know you. Just let me grab the right URL. My apologies for this. One of those little technical issues, right? Okay. Alrighty, we're just about to where I'm grabbing the one I want you to have, because I really do want to have time to chat with you and make sure that that this course is a good fit. I am not the kind of teacher who just wants to grab your tuition money and run with it. I want to be teaching students who will become the very best possible students. Okay. I'm not finding it. This one will work. Even though it says it's a follow-up call, it's not really. We're going to put this as, there we go. Use this one, insight-45. tinyurl.com/insight-45. My apologies for that. I usually try to be more organized than that. That will give us time to, like I said, to get to know each other, to make sure that this is a good fit for you, to make sure you've got the prerequisites, to make sure that you'll be happy in the course, right? And I will give you all the details about how long the course is, what the tuition is, how many students you'll be studying with, all the different kinds of support you get in this, because I guarantee I give more support than any other teacher. And I mean, Sophia Perez, who is with us today, is one of my students. Love that. And she could attest to the fact that this is not a do it on your own course, that there is a ton of support available to you. And so with that, my friends, and Sophie says, yes, that's totally right. Thank you, Sophia. I really do appreciate that. My goal is to turn out iridologists who will be better than I am and who will progress iridology to the next level for the next generation. That's my dream. And that's why I give the support I give. So with that, my friends, I must run. Thank you for being with me. I'll put the replay out to you probably tomorrow. Have a brilliant day. And please go ahead. Sophia says, very recommended course. Thank you, Sophia. I didn't pay her to say that either. And schedule a call. Let's talk. Let's see if this is a good fit for you. Take good care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.